Hi everyone! In this episode you can hear my conversation with Jorge Nunes, who had become the most successful WSET Diploma graduate in the 2021 calendar year. As a diploma student myself, I wanted to pick Jorge's brain about how he got to achieve this honourable title. Most helpful techniques, tasting tips, surprising challenges and the power of motivation are all parts of this episode. Other than that, Jorge is currently working as the Asia Pacific Market Manager at great Symington Family Estates in Singapore. So you can also hear his perspective about the current state of the Asian and sweet wine market in the beginning of our conversation. I've learned a lot from Jorge during this hour-long talk and I hope you'll do the same as well. And please get in contact if you have any questions or comments about the episode. I've also uploaded a small segment of this episode in video format onto the WineGoes YouTube channel, which I long abandoned unfortunately. So check it out if you want to bear a face to the voice in your head. Enjoy! Cheers! Jorge Nunes, thanks for taking time. I'm very glad to welcome you at the WineGoes podcast and happy to talk to you.
Thank you, Mate, for the invitation.
You are in Singapore now, you told me. How is the wine market there now and how is the vibe there, so to say?
I was based in Hong Kong for 10 years, pretty much since the boom of the zero taxes. But with all the COVID, all the issues, I moved to Singapore. And it's interesting because I think the fine wine market has kind of followed as well, not because of me, obviously, but because of all the region is growing and Singapore taking advantage of that sort of slight decline in Hong Kong. And so a lot of development, a lot of growth, a lot of excitement for sure. I would say that Hong Kong is probably coming back because China is coming back as well. But it's interesting because now we have perhaps two areas of growth in the fine wine world, both servicing different areas, Hong Kong, China, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam. So it's more Southeast Asia. So pretty cool to see that expansion.
And you are Portuguese, right? So how did you end up basically in Singapore?
Portuguese from Porto, born and raised, but 16 years ago and counting, I joined the Symington Family Estates. Leading port producer, Douro producer. And in 2008, they invited me to start flying to Asia. My background is winemaking, oenology. And so they wanted somebody who had, a bit of technical knowledge, probably thinking that I'm terrible at making wine. That's probably their conclusion. Like, I think you're better off selling than making them. So get out there and go sell it. And so in 2008, I began traveling here. In 2012, they presented the opportunity to move. And obviously I said, yes, great opportunity. So it's been 11 years of a lot of groundwork, a lot of tasting, a lot of traveling, mostly focused on Douro ports. There's a couple of other things from Alentejo and other areas now, but definitely the bread and butter is still the port world.
Cool. It really sounds exciting, probably. And how is the market for port wine or for Douro wines, basically in Singapore?
It's better than I think people probably recognize. I mean, it's small. I mean, it's a small proportion of the total Symington business, far smaller than the, let's call it, traditional mature markets in Europe, Western Europe, US, for example. It is growing. You can see an added interest from this part of the world. You can see the Koreans really going into it. You can see the Tunisians, the Malaysians, the Vietnamese. Singapore domestic market is actually pretty reasonable. Small numbers, but if you add all the region, it's not bad, and it begins to justify a bit more attention from the industry as well, not just from us, but more people coming from the Douro to present their wines here. I think that's missing a bit, and the numbers justify that already, I think.
Because we already touched on the sweet wine market, or maybe the struggle of the sweet wine market nowadays, right? I also experience it as a sommelier day by day. But do you see that port and traditional sweet wines, so to say, like Tokai and Sauternes, they fall under the same caps, under the same category in these kind of countries?
Before we started recording, I was saying sweet wines of the world unite. When I heard you were Hungarian, obviously Tokai, wonderful wines from Hungary. And I think that we are facing some of the same challenges. I think there's a consumer behavior, if you want, a consumer trend that is moving away from some of the sweet wines. There's this odd belief, perhaps, that they're going to be bad for you, and it's unhealthy or it's unsophisticated, whatever it may be. I personally believe that these trends, it's always back and forth, and I think the great classics are great wines at all times, and so I think there will always be a great room for these great sweet wines. But you can see the Douro going through similar things as Tokai and Sauterre, for that matter. It's producers beginning to focus on dry wines, taking some of those grapes and saying, look, the market is getting limited. Why don't we try to find to expand into other areas that are perhaps a bit easier? It's a bit of a challenge. But having said that, look, we're seeing growth in this part. So even if there is some stagnation in some European markets because of these dynamics at a consumer level, in this part of the world where the knowledge of sweet wines is limited and the wine market is still so young, we actually see growth and interest in sweet wine. So we're excited about it, but very aware that of the challenges that we face.
Cool. Do you see that the Asian cuisine might also be better suited or well suited for this kind of wines?
I personally believe that it's terrible to generalize Asian food as if it's only one thing. It's like calling European food. There's so many different cuisines.
That's true. I apologize for that.
No, not. I totally understood what you were saying, Mate. I mean, they do have one thing in common in many ways, with few exceptions. There's always it's a bit more about texture, a bit more about balancing sweetness as well in the food, which is something the Western food, generalizing Western food, we tend to be more savory and having very defined savory and then dessert. And then in Asian cuisine, there's an integration of sugar. Thai food, a lot of the Chinese food, a lot of Korean food, there's a bit of sugar element. And so there's a very fine balance there between the acidity and the sugar that they need to find in the food, which is very much like us in the sweet wine world do. And so I do find as port as a wine for food a lot more interesting in Asia than I would with Western food, because it doesn't, with dessert and cheese, great, but at the table with savory dishes, there are a few things that you can explore, but it's always a little hard. And I find that in Asia, there's a bit more room for that. Is it working? And are people doing that at home, drinking port with their food? Not yet. But we are trying that with some very good results, actually. In particular cuisines where that richness, that sweetness is there.
So you won the Vintners Cup in 2021. In other words, had the highest aggregate mark across all 6 units of the WSET Diploma. And first of all, still congratulations, what an achievement.
Thanks.
But secondly, it has maybe put you on the enviable and sought after position of being the hero who nailed it among all current diploma students around the globe. So please let me pick your brain a little bit about that, because I'm also a WSET student myself. What was your actual motivation starting the diploma?
Well, first of all, thanks. It's just weird to talk about my success. It happened. There's a lot of factors, and I can certainly go through them. But the major factor, I'll have to say, hard work. I mean, it's really difficult. It's really hard work, and I let me, I'll definitely come back to the motivation side, but why I decided to do it. But frankly, timing was perfect, and I'll explain. Unit 3, that those diploma students, you and other students or people that went through it, we all know it's the hardest one and the biggest one. So all the light wines of the world. I happened to be stuck in Hong Kong in my apartment under lockdown during COVID. I had nothing else to do, and so it ended up being really good timing that I could spend many weeks, and I won't deny it. It were many weeks of a lot of studying, particularly the theory side. And so, yeah, I mean, it ended up being a useful lockdown in that sense. Why I did it? Well, if I just felt like it was a natural next step. I had done level 3 in 2009, so a long time ago, and I kind of thought, well, this is it, fine. It's not like I need to learn anymore. This is 10 years ago, and then all of a sudden you sort of start traveling, start to face all these different wines around the world, and you talk with buyers, you talk with your brand managers, you talk with media, and you start to sort of going, okay, I think I should have a better understanding of other wines, the business of wine, and that motivation was there really, and WSET just seemed to be the right place to do it. And I gotta say, it was. I'm glad I passed, definitely. But even if I hadn't, just a sheer amount of knowledge that you learn from it is excellent. It really is very valuable, and I recommend it to anyone who's in the wine business that should go for it, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's also, this question is a lot of times also a little bit underappreciated. Like, what was maybe the motivation? Because I think the answer could really keep the flame alive in you, so to say, because it could be a hard challenge, or could be many years actually of your life if you don't, if you cannot allocate as much time as you could maybe in the lockdown at once. So I think this kind of motivational part, I think it's a very vital part of existence for a WSET diploma student. But what you also said, it's hard work. But maybe what were your most helpful tools during this time? So if you say, of course, hard work and diligence, but what comes to mind? What was the secret of your success, so to say, other than the lockdown?
I would say, look, every one of us has their own methods of study, and I think we all need to find the one that suits you. A lot of people do what do you call that? Sort of those study cards. I'm not sure how to say in English. So the flashcards, exactly. A lot of people do those and find that really useful. For me, it doesn't work so much. I'm much more call me old school, but I love to read and just big text, which can be a bit daunting at times. But that's the way I work better. I summarize the entire book, for example, something that worked for me. So, and the problem with that book, for everyone that has read the Unit 3 book, it's you can't really summarize much, because everything that is in there, it's already a lot of it's already everything pretty packed, very packed. Yeah. But I managed to go from 500 pages to 140, small print, so it's still a lot. But then that I divided by country. For example, I printed however many countries there are, 16 or whatever it was. And then I would, today I'm going to read Chile, tomorrow I'm going to read Australia, tomorrow, and so that was the process that I was going through and highlighting some of the key things. And so that's how I went through more of the theory, was summarizing it, because I could get that. As I was writing or typing, I was getting that into my brain, and then just literally just repeating it and repeating it and repeating it, and just the key information. Sometimes just in one sentence, just key info that I thought was relevant. So that worked pretty well for me. On top of that, the practical side. During lockdown, we could still get out of the house during some time, and this was 2019 and 2020. So right before the pandemic, and then a little bit during the pandemic until the exam. My recommendation is find a tasting group. So I was very lucky to have a group of 7 other students in Hong Kong, all doing diploma with me, and we met every Saturday for months in a row, every single Saturday. And we had one young man who was very bright and passed it as well, like really young, early 20s, but really happy that he took it upon himself to set up the blind tastings every single week. So we would literally just give him money. He would buy it. He would set it up. We would just all show up in a neutral place, a little tasting room, and we would taste the wine blind and then discuss it. And this was so useful. I can't recommend it enough. If you have the chance to network with fellow students, you share costs. That's a big thing. You just save money on wines, and you study together, and you learn together, and you fail together. You fail a lot, and you will look at what you just tasted and what you just said and go, "How did I not see this?" Happens to everyone. Even I'm sure a master of wine happens the same. It's impossible to get it right all the time. You can't do it, but you can practice it. And so I think that's my biggest recommendation: is find a group of students that you can work with and study with, particularly for the practical bit.
Because I work as a sommelier, so I do the practical side, so to say, every day. But I think for a lot of people who are working in another industry or have another job, I think they make the big mistake that they treat the hard part, so to say, that tattooing the information onto your brain. So the theory part and the practical side separately, and they don't really connect the material with the kind of tasting note and the blind tasting.
The theory will help you a lot.
Mm.
The theory will help you a lot, and because it really helps with the logic of what you are experiencing. So do try to integrate both together. You know, it's if you're tasting a fortified, and if you smell high alcohol, this heat in the nose, then you know, okay, well, fortification, great. The alcohol will be X. Even if you don't actually realize how much alcohol, if you know you can get to the alcohol level by your theory. Well, if this is it, then it must be that. I mean, so integrate theory into your practical bit. And then my recommendation for practical bit is don't waste time with obscure stuff. I think for WSET 4, light wines and sparklings and whatever, know the classics. Because you will get classic. You will get, a Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. You will get a Bordeaux red. You will get a Barolo. You will get a Chianti. You will get a Rioja. You focus on the classics. Know them well, and those are your bankers. So you will end up having a banker there in the tasting that will help you with the other ones. And so know them well. Know those bankers well. They will help you go, okay, well, this is it, and I'm pretty sure it is. Then this can only be that. That can only be that. Done. And so don't go for really obscure stuff because you really don't have to. And even if you don't know, and if you don't get it right, it's only a portion of the question anyway. As long as you get the rest of everything right, you'll be fine. But focus on the classics; those you really need to know.
That's a really great advice. I haven't heard it before, but I think it's to know your anchor points, so to say, right? Like orientation points, because it could be really daunting if you have 6 wines in front of you or 12 wines in front of you.
You have no idea.
Yeah, and then it's just really easy to get lost. And if we are talking about tasting, and what's your approach to blind tasting? Maybe also in your private life, if you do some games, but more like in the WSET kind of framework. Because for me as a sommelier, it might be one of the biggest challenges in the entire diploma and WSET structure is describing the wine in this kind of frugal, kind of unimaginative way. And it's basically the opposite of what you should do as a sommelier at the table or when you write about the wine on Instagram or I don't know. So how did you find the fine line of being accurate, like an accurate describer, but still greatly descriptive in your quality assessment without being too poetic? Or is poetic then okay?
I think that, it's a disadvantage in many parts of my life, but it's great for this. I'm not very poetic. I'm not particularly good with words. I'm pretty pragmatic and straightforward. And so in this particular case, the approach that WSET kind of wants students to write and to classify and taste the wine, it is useful, because it's a standardized tasting format, and you should stick to it, and create a structure in your answering that you can remember, so that everything falls into place. If you're talking about the quality, and you're going, this wine is very good, or this wine is outstanding. I created this style of answer, and the structure was always the same. It started by, let's see if I remember correctly, it started by intensity of aromas. It went to balance between whatever that I thought was important, usually acidity, body, flavors, sugar, if it was the case, resulting in a wine which was da-da-da, and then saying the level of complexity is whatever, the length is this, therefore I believe this to be it. And that was it. And that was my framework. And I memorized how I had to do it. Not particularly great, not poetic, but effective. And so I think it's that standard of answer that you need to build on and really get right. And then once you have all those elements that the WSET wants you and needs you to write about, because those are the key things they will score, you know exactly how to do it. And again, in the blind tasting, I don't think I'm particularly good at blind tasting. I don't think I am. And I think I'm good at least it has worked well, is just sort of standardizing the way that I frame it and the way that I answer it. And even if you don't get it right on what you thought it was, you still get points from if your analysis is correct of the wine, and you focus on that. So don't when you get out of the tasting, don't go, I didn't get it right, oh, I failed. No, no, not really. If the assessment that you did was good and was logic, and if you say that the wine is medium minus intensity, medium minus length is short, the wine is good, or even say very good, obviously you're not being consistent. There's a logic there. If you say it's medium plus, medium plus, medium plus, very good. If you say it's medium, 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 it's good. If you say long or high intensity, it's outstanding. Follow that logic, and if that consistency comes across as, okay, this guy makes sense, and so that helped me a lot to frame that answer.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's also very good advice, but you just said it's also, but maybe coming back to your previous answer, it's not the most important thing that you nail the wine, so to say. And it's I'm not sure that I could talk about it. Probably I cannot. What happened in the sparkling exam, so I won't. But I also didn't nail the wine, so I actually I wrote something completely silly, but I still passed the exam because my description was kind of accurate. So I think a lot of people just concentrating on this fine answer, what you should brag about, maybe if you succeed, that wow, I nailed it, this is the wine, but it's actually a minor part of the exam.
Absolutely.
Which sources had been the biggest help for you in the diploma journey? I mean, print and maybe online as well, because you mentioned the book. You obviously have to read it, but I think it could be really unimaginative and also really boring. And I think you could also keep your mind a little bit more stimulated if you read other publications. What were your favorites?
For Unit 3.
Mm-hmm.
I focused on the book. I made sure in class, at least in my time, to ask at least 2 different teachers that I had, if I know what is in the book, will I pass?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Will you ask something that was not in the book? No. Okay. And so I got these answers. Very straightforward. I didn't have it in writing. I probably should have, just to be secure. But when I had that answer, I went, okay, I'm going to focus on the book for this unit.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it is pretty, it's pretty heavy, I think, and it does get. I'm not saying boring, because if you do love the subject of wine, and if you're reading it with the with the mindset of this is interesting. This is good stuff. It's learning. Knowledge doesn't occupy space. I'm not sure if this translates, but we have a Portuguese saying like that. And so you just take it as a fun game, and you just embrace it for the learning sake. But for the other units, I did read a few. Actually, there were a few Madeira books. There's a sherry book for the fortifieds. I ended up going into, honestly, and I'm sorry that I don't have the names in my mind now, but sherry, champagne, Madeira. I did explore other books apart from what they provided us, because I just thought that it wasn't enough what was there for me to be completely comfortable with those categories. So for the units, I can't remember now which, the fortified, the sparkling, I did go outside of the book that we provided by WSET. For Unit 3, I didn't bother. Now, having said this, working in the trade, I do sign for publications, for example, like Menninger's or Drinks Business, and so I get these daily or weekly newsletter, which I honestly recommend to everyone. They're more business than perhaps anything else, but the reading just constantly, A, keeps you stimulated, B, it just gets into your brain. As you speak, you just memorize keywords, key concepts, which will help you. And again, as you said, it can be a bit daunting, it can be a bit boring. This keeps it fresh as well.
Yeah, I think it's also, as you said, it's newsletters, right? It could be really important, and also it's kind of automatic. That's what I like about it. Like, I don't have to, now I look for something, because it just comes automatically, and maybe, as you said, it's a lot of business thing in it, which might be unimportant, but I really like I really like the automatic kind of side of it.
Yeah, you don't have to look for it.
Yeah,
it shows up in your email box, and you just go, oh, okay, well, I can read, and you can, many things are just not very interesting, but there are a few things that you go, this article is cool. Okay, Chile, whatever it is, Carmenere Napa that I was reading about the other day. Oh, interesting. Napa is, and that just goes into your brain, like Carmenere. Oh, okay, I'll remember that variety. Oh yeah, the green bell pepper variety. Yes, little concepts that your brain just assimilates slowly and gradually that will help you.
Do you have any concrete recommendations for actual recommendations for newsletters? What you might?
I find the Menninger's report really good, but definitely more business. I actually did not receive it for a long time. I didn't subscribe it by some reason, but I did subscribe Drinks Business, and Drinks Business was pretty useful, and it's a daily one. Probably 80% of it are not useful, but there's a good 20% that gets you news about the fine wine market, that's you news about a region, what they're doing, a winemaker that he's talking about, he's the way that he's working on. It has some really interesting stuff there. Never too technical, but I don't think WSET is known to be very technical as well. It's supposed to be a generic, broad knowledge of the industry, so that gives you just enough amount of knowledge that you need for your studies, to just keep accumulating that wealth of knowledge.
Cool. And do you have any publications, other than online, maybe print magazines, what you could recommend, and what you read, what you're a fan of?
Honestly, not so much. But I like I said, very pragmatic on the way that I approached it. This is what I need to do. I know I'm not going to have much time to do other things, and I focused on it. There's a few podcasts these days that are showing up about wine. Obviously, Wine Ghost is a very good idea. Obviously, sorry, the publicity there. But Jancis Robertson has one now. It really just started, but it has there's some interesting stuff. And I think if you look there, you will find a lot of different things that you can listen while you're cooking, while you're running, while you're going for a walk. I mean, I think I do enjoy those moments because similarly to the drinks business email that you get it, you don't have to look for it. Put on your headphones, and it's just knowledge coming in while you do something else. So you don't have to be focused on that particular thing. So I definitely recommend podcasts as a really good source of info as well. And by the way, sorry, there's another one actually that was actually pretty useful. WSET ran these. They're online, I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm. On YouTube channel, they had these videos of about an hour that they would dig into. Today we're talking about Grenache, and it's really interesting. So WSET, usually an MW doing these, and I remember 2 or 3 weeks before the exam, I would just sort of go for a walk and put those, and it would be an hour about Syrah. Mm-hmm. And obviously there's a presentation, so you probably need to follow on your phone or whatever. But those are really useful. They're out there. I'll look for them. I thought they were very, very cool about those classics I was talking about before. Know your classics. Those talk about the classics. Really useful.
Yeah. I tend to look for those as well. It's really, these master classes are really useful. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Did you also use maybe some maps? Because I find the maps really useful because I'm also kind of visual guy, but I think most of us are visual. So maybe linking information to a particular area or to a particular appellation.
Absolutely, yes. Forgot about those. Yes, get those maps. We talk about when we're talking about wine. And Mate, I'm sure you do in your sommelier world. Wine is about culture, sure, about food, but it's also about geography. And I think if you connect those in your mind, it'll be a lot easier visually in your mind to put those concepts associated with a landscape, with an image, with a location. So use those maps. Super useful, particularly when you're getting to. I confess, I think back then I couldn't afford. Now I definitely can't afford most Burgundies being sold. But a Burgundy map really helps you to nail all sort of those names that you'd have to know. And if not for a map and it was just sort of concepts on a sheet of paper, it wouldn't have worked as well. So use those. Yeah, definitely good recommendation.
And a little bit about the D6, because I think this unit also stands out a little bit out of the other ones because it's not a closed book exam, but you have to actually sit down for a couple of weeks or a couple of days. I don't know how long
So remind me, which one is the D6?
D6 is the thesis, what you have to write.
Oh yeah, the thesis, yeah.
On a given topic. So that's actually even more difficult because you don't choose a topic what you really like. But for example, now I do the sustainable Bordeaux topic, which is actually kind of interesting, I think, but maybe for others not. So it could be also very daunting and challenging just to sit down and read about a topic what you actually don't really give a shit about. Sorry. But how did you nail this exam, and what was your approach to this?
I don't know if I've done it, but if it's different from what it is now. In my days, it was still the wine and spirits. I still had the spirits side. I think it was the last year that we had spirits. This would have been 2018, I think 18, 19. It was the very last one. And so I had two works to do. One of them was I had to deliver a paper that I did at home. It was about rum, the renaissance of rum, which is quite cool. So I had to, downloaded a few books and read through it and just basically built my thesis around it and quoted this, quoted that, and we all know how that works. And the other one was the closed book about sherry. And so, yes, I had to prepare about that. I was lucky, but I because I have my network because of the business, which is great. But I definitely recommend that you guys reach out, I think it is possible if you really wanted to find these contacts and get information from them. I spoke with a great guy, Tim from Barbadillo at the time, and he was super useful. Gave me a few recommendations, a few numbers, exports, and whatever, and it was really, really useful. And so this information is out there. If you really want it, you can look for it. Ask the producers. Ask for. Don't be afraid of reaching out. I mean, if it was a question about port, and you research Symington, send an email to symington@symington.com. I mean, literally, the generic, and just say, look, I live here, and I would like, and the email will go to the right people, and we will answer. And so don't be afraid of doing that to whichever paper you're on. Contact producers. They will help you.
Cool. That's a great advice, I think. And about revising, maybe. Did you do any mock exams or some kind of revisions like that before the exam?
I answered definitely. I definitely answered some of the past stuff. I went through them, practiced answering, practice time. Time management is an important one there. So I practiced my timing if I was making it within the allotted time that I had. So yeah, definitely practice writing. That's what it is. And practice your handwriting as well. I'm not sure is it possible now to do typing? I'm not sure. But my time, I think I did writing, and I got to say, write in a way that the people that are correcting it will understand your handwriting. So just practice a lot. So get writing right by those practices.
And I think a lot of people, or I forgot it actually, and the physical aspect of writing. Like I didn't write for, I don't know, a couple of years now. And my hand was so tired at the first exam, like I realized I don't really write with my hand nowadays. So it's also, I think if you have like an ugly handwriting, that's also kind of unpractical, but just the physical, as you said, as the physical aspect of writing.
That's it.
Yeah.
Sounds basic, but it's important because you're going to have to be quick. And legible or readable.
Yeah.
Whatever you're going to write has to be readable. Yeah. So I found that my handwriting changes from time to time because I don't write it continuously, and although those pauses, when you go back and writing, it just looks different from what you had in your memory. So I think you just keep changing. So that it is important to get that right, that typing. That had that handwriting right and fast. So practice.
If you are lucky, and if you were not really lucky but hardworking, and you pass all these exams and you have this diploma in your hand, or did you notice that this exam or this certificate opened doors for you which you didn't participate or didn't anticipate beforehand?
To be very honest, I'd love to say yes. People were knocking on my door all the time. Hey, come on, we want to pay you more money. No, not really. That has not happened. But I think it more than anything, it gives you a level of confidence that before that, even if you had studied, I know this is a bit unfair because a lot of the people that failed diploma know probably a lot more than I do. It's just a paper. The knowledge is, and it's not equivalent to the paper or not. It doesn't, and it shouldn't. But the fact is, the paper does mean something, and that diploma does mean something, and that gives you a certain level of confidence when debating certain themes, when you're talking to the trade, when in whichever part of the business, if you are in the wine business, a lot of people that are not, but if you are in the wine business, it does give you a certain sense of authority When people see those, WSET Diploma, it does bring a weight with it. Opportunities are only there if you explore them. The doors are not going to be open for you. But if you use that diploma in the right way, then certainly the opportunities are a bit more abundant, for sure. It's a very well respected examination and a difficult one to achieve. And so if you do, then it does mean that you're knowledgeable, you're hardworking, and so that brings in confidence, but that brings respect in the trade as well. But you got to go look for it. You got to go look for that success. Don't wait for it. Don't expect that all of a sudden the doors are open. No.
And maybe as a last question, because you are now the Asia Pacific market manager at Symington, right? And of course, you want to stay at the company forever. But what are maybe your future goals? So what are you trying to achieve with the MW title?
Look, I think that the MW is another step, a different magnitude step. It is a bit of a scary endeavor, if I may say so. But I think I just thought, look, it's in the wine business. There are obviously the Master Somm and the Master of Wine. They're two different top of your career, really, within the wine world. And they're both incredibly difficult to achieve. That's why there's only, a few people around the world that have it. But they are a bit different. And because, the Master Somm is about knowledge, very deep knowledge about a particular region, producer, vintage, and service. And the Master of Wine is more about the business, the broad spectrum of it. I think Master Somm is more detailed. Master of Wine is not as detailed, but broader. That's kind of the way that I see it. And in my case, being not in the service, I have absolutely no capacity of being a somm. I couldn't. It's too hard work, really, and too many crazy hours. It's really hard work, Mate. I know you guys work really hard, long hours. Service industry is a tough one and requires a certain capacity, certain personality, which I don't think I could. It's really difficult, and so I respect the somm community a lot because it is not easy. And so in my case, being sales, business, it just felt like that was the right progression, and it's the ultimate goal, really. If you're in the wine world, you can't go higher than that. And so it was a challenge, really. People tell me you're a bit masochistic for going this way, which is probably true. And then I speak with a few MWs already. They all say, "Yep, you have to have a very high dose of masochism to go this way and you're going to work hard. You're going to sleep badly. You're going to go through stress and madness, and you still go through it. But I think I think it's a challenge. I just enjoy that challenge of having all this knowledge that I have to know, and all these wines that I have to understand. And it's been great. It just started about 4 or 5 months ago, a year one, so just beginning it. But it's honestly a scary mountain to climb. It really is. But there's a fun element to it, but painful. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's going to worth it, and I'm sure you're going to succeed. Don't shake your hand, I'm sure.
I mean, I appreciate the vote of confidence, but...
So, Jorge, would you like to add something?
Mate, look, obviously, thank you for inviting me for Wine Ghosts. I mean, much appreciated. I just hope that this was useful for all students that will listen, have listened to this podcast, and that I may have given some some practical tools. I think that's one of the things that I always struggle, both in WSET and now with MW, is the being pragmatic as I am. I like to hear those, key concepts, key help. Not broad terms. Oh, you got to study harder. Like, no, that's okay. I know that, but just give me a few things that I can use, and hopefully that's I've given some of those advices and shed some light on what I did, and which there's a big dose of luck as well in the middle of all of that. Trust me, but there is a lot of hard work. And so good luck with everyone, really, if you're going through it. And good luck to you as well, Matthias. You're doing it, so hope it goes well.
Thank you very much. I'm sure it was helpful because I learned a lot and I had a lot of interesting and also very kind of innovative thoughts. So thank you very much. And I wish you a great success.